The city lights reflected off the polished windows of Bellissimo, one of the finest restaurants downtown. Inside, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light across white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. Soft jazz music drifted through the air, mixing with the gentle sound of conversation and clinking wine glasses. James Carter stood at the entrance, straightening his gray blazer one more time. At 32, he had built a successful architectural firm from the ground up, designing some of the most beautiful buildings in the state. But success in business had not translated to success in love. Tonight was different, though. His college roommate had set him up on a blind date, promising him that this woman was special, intelligent, and absolutely stunning. A hostess in a black dress approached him with a professional smile. She led him through the restaurant, weaving between tables where couples laughed and families celebrated. They stopped at a corner booth near a large window overlooking the city skyline. And there she was. Vanessa Monroe rose from her seat with fluid grace. Her emerald green dress hugged her figure perfectly, and her dark hair fell in sleek waves past her shoulders. Diamond earrings caught the light as she turned her head, and her smile revealed perfect white teeth. She extended a delicate hand toward James. "You must be James," she said, her voice smooth as honey. "I have heard so much about you." James took her hand, feeling slightly overwhelmed by her presence. "All good things, I hope." "Only the best," Vanessa replied, her eyes sparkling with what seemed like genuine interest. They sat down, and almost immediately, Vanessa began asking questions about his work. She knew details about his recent projects, the challenges of modern architecture, even the names of some buildings his firm had designed. James felt flattered by her attention and knowledge. "I read about your work in Metropolitan Design magazine," Vanessa explained, leaning forward. "The sustainable housing project you completed last year was brilliant. How did you manage to reduce costs while maintaining such high quality?" James launched into an explanation, feeling comfortable talking about his passion. Vanessa listened intently, asking follow-up questions that showed she understood the technical aspects. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. Across the restaurant, Rachel Bennett moved between tables with practiced efficiency. At 26, she had worked as a waitress for 5 years while taking night classes at the community college. She noticed everything. It was a skill she had developed growing up with an unpredictable alcoholic father. Reading people and situations had become second nature to her survival. Earlier that evening, before the restaurant had filled with dinner guests, Rachel had seen Vanessa arrive. But she had not been alone. A man in an expensive suit had been with her, and they had sat at this very same booth. Rachel had brought them water, staying close enough to catch pieces of their conversation. "He designs all the major projects," the man had said, pulling out his phone to show Vanessa something. "Get close to him. Find out about the Riverside development. My company needs those blueprints before the bid closes next week." Vanessa had nodded, her expression cold and calculating. "I will charm him, get him talking. Men like him love to show off their work. He will not even realize what he is sharing." "Make it convincing," the man had warned. "We need detailed information. Floor plans, material suppliers, budget breakdowns. Everything." Rachel had felt her stomach turn. She had moved away quickly, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping. The man had left shortly after, and Vanessa had stayed, touching up her makeup and checking her phone until James arrived. Now, as Rachel carried a tray of drinks to another table, she watched Vanessa laugh at something James said. The woman's performance was flawless, but Rachel could see through it. She had seen too many lies in her life not to recognize them. Rachel approached their table with water glasses. James glanced up with a polite smile. Vanessa barely acknowledged her presence, too focused on maintaining eye contact with James. "Your server will be with you shortly to take your order," Rachel said professionally. As she set down the glasses, her hand moved quickly, sliding a folded napkin next to James's plate. She met his eyes for just a second, then turned and walked away. James reached for his water, his fingers brushing against the napkin. Something was written on it. He unfolded it discreetly under the table. "She is not who you think. Be careful what you share. I saw her with another man earlier planning this." James felt his heart skip a beat. He looked up, searching for the waitress, but she had disappeared into the kitchen. He glanced at Vanessa, who was studying the menu with apparent interest. "The salmon here is supposed to be excellent," Vanessa said, looking up at him with that perfect smile. "What do you think you will have?" James forced himself to smile back, his mind racing. Was the note real? Could this beautiful, interested woman really be lying to him? He decided to test the waters. "I'm thinking about the steak," he said casually. "By the way, what did you say you do for work again?" A flicker of something crossed Vanessa's face, so quick he almost missed it. "I work in marketing," she said smoothly. "Corporate branding, mostly." "That sounds interesting. Which company?" Another pause, barely noticeable. "Meridian Consulting Group. We handle multiple clients." James nodded, filing the information away. The waitress's warning echoed in his mind. His instincts, the same ones that had helped him succeed in business, were suddenly on high alert. Something about this evening had just shifted, and James Carter was no longer the eager man who had walked through those doors hoping for love. The waiter arrived to take their orders, giving James a moment to collect his thoughts. He ordered the steak without really thinking about it, his mind focused on the note hidden in his palm. Vanessa ordered the salmon with a side salad, her voice cheerful and light. But James was no longer listening to her words the same way. He was listening for what lay beneath them. As the waiter left, Vanessa returned her attention to James, resting her chin on her hand in a pose that seemed designed to showcase her elegant features. "So, tell me more about the Riverside project. I read it is going to transform the entire waterfront district." James felt a chill run down his spine. The Riverside development was his firm's biggest project, and the bidding process was highly confidential. How did she know to ask about it specifically? He kept his expression neutral, taking a sip of water to buy himself time. "It is still in early planning stages," he said carefully. "Not much to tell yet." Vanessa's smile did not waver, but her eyes sharpened slightly. "Oh, come on. You must be excited about it. What is your vision for the space?" "The usual," James replied vaguely. "Mixed use, sustainable design, community-focused." He watched her reaction closely. She seemed slightly frustrated by his lack of detail, though she hid it well. "I bet the budget for something like that must be enormous," Vanessa pressed, laughing as if making casual conversation. "What does a project like that cost these days?" James felt his jaw tighten. No one casually asked about project budgets on a first date. He pulled out his phone, pretending to check a message. "Excuse me for just a moment," he said. Under the table, he quickly typed a text to his business partner, David. "Need you to check something. Woman named Vanessa Monroe claims to work at Meridian Consulting Group in marketing. Can you verify?" The response came back within 2 minutes. "No Vanessa Monroe listed at Meridian. Check their website and LinkedIn." "Want me to dig deeper?" James typed back quickly. "Yes. Also check if anyone has been asking about Riverside project." He looked up to find Vanessa watching him with a slight frown. "Everything okay?" "Just work," James said with an apologetic smile. "You know how it is. So, tell me about your family. Do you have any siblings?" Vanessa launched into a story about growing up with 2 brothers, but James noticed how generic her details were. No specific names, no memorable anecdotes, nothing that felt truly personal. She was good at talking without actually saying anything real. His phone buzzed again. David's message made his blood run cold. "A company called Titan Construction has been trying to get information about our Riverside bid. They were caught trying to bribe one of our junior architects last week. Want me to send you their CEO's photo?" "Yes," James typed back. 30 seconds later, a photo appeared on his screen. A man in an expensive suit with slick back hair and cold eyes. James felt certain this was the man Rachel had seen with Vanessa earlier. Another message from David. His name is Gregory Walsh. Ruthless businessman, known for corporate espionage. "Be careful, James." James set his phone down, his decision made. He looked at Vanessa with new eyes, seeing past the beautiful exterior to the calculated manipulation beneath. Their meals arrived, and they ate in relative silence. Vanessa seemed to sense that something had shifted, and she worked harder to regain his attention, touching his arm, laughing more enthusiastically, complimenting him repeatedly. "You seem distracted," she finally said, a hint of concern in her voice that might have fooled him an hour ago. Is everything all right? James set down his fork and met her gaze directly. I know why you are really here, Vanessa, or whatever your name actually is. Her smile froze, and for a moment, the mask slipped entirely. He saw calculation in her eyes, a quick assessment of whether to keep lying or cut her losses. I do not know what you mean, she tried, but her voice lacked conviction now. Gregory Walsh, James said quietly. Titan Construction. The Riverside Project. Should I continue? Vanessa's face hardened, the warmth vanishing like it had never existed. She picked up her purse with sharp, angry movements. You cannot prove anything. I do not need to prove anything, James replied calmly. I just need to make sure you leave empty-handed, which you will. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several nearby diners turned to look. You are making a mistake, she hissed, leaning close. Gregory does not like losing. Then he should stop cheating, James said evenly. Goodbye, Vanessa. She turned on her heel and strode toward the exit, her high heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. James watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of anger and relief. He had almost fallen for it, almost trusted someone who saw him as nothing more than a target. He signaled for the check, his eyes scanning the restaurant until he found her. Rachel was clearing a table near the back, her movements efficient and unassuming. When she glanced up and saw him looking at her, she quickly looked away, as if afraid of getting involved further. James paid the bill and stood up, buttoning his jacket. He walked slowly toward the back of the restaurant, stopping near where Rachel was stacking dishes on a tray. Excuse me, he said softly. Rachel turned, her expression guarded. Up close, he could see that she was younger than he had first thought, with tired eyes that had seen too much. There was a small scar on her chin and a dusting of freckles across her nose. She wore no jewelry, no makeup, just simple honesty in a world of pretense. Thank you, James said simply. You saved me from making a serious mistake. Rachel shrugged, looking uncomfortable with the attention. I just could not stand by and watch someone get used like that. It was not right. Most people would have minded their own business, James pointed out. Maybe, Rachel said, picking up her tray. But I have seen what happens when good people get hurt by liars. I could not let it happen if I could stop it. James studied her for a moment, intrigued by the quiet strength in her voice. Are you finished with your shift soon? Rachel blinked in surprise. I have another hour. Why? Because I would like to buy you a cup of coffee, James said. If you are willing. No ulterior motives, no schemes. Just a genuine thank you from someone who appreciates honesty. Rachel hesitated, clearly weighing the offer. Finally, she nodded slowly. The cafe next door stays open late. I can meet you there in an hour. I will be waiting, James promised. The cafe next door to Bellissimo was everything the restaurant was not. Where Bellissimo was elegant and refined, the cafe was warm and comfortable, with mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and the rich smell of fresh coffee filling the air. James sat at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee waiting, watching the door. When Rachel walked in, she had changed out of her uniform into jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her blonde hair was down now, falling past her shoulders in natural waves. Without the formal waitress attire, she looked even younger, more vulnerable somehow. She spotted him and walked over, sliding into the seat across from him. I was not sure you would actually come, Rachel admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm coffee cup. Why would you think that? James asked. Because people like you do not usually spend time with people like me, Rachel said matter-of-factly, without self-pity. Different worlds. James leaned back in his chair, considering her words. I think you might be surprised how similar our worlds actually are. We both work hard, we both try to do the right thing, and we both apparently have a problem with liars. A small smile tugged at Rachel's lips. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their coffee. The cafe was quiet at this hour, with only a few other customers scattered around, lost in their laptops or late-night conversations. Can I ask you something? James said finally. How did you know? About Vanessa, I mean. What made you decide to warn me? Rachel looked down at her coffee, gathering her thoughts. I grew up with a father who lied about everything. where the money went, why he came home late, why mom had bruises on her arms. I learned to read people, to see the truth behind the words. It was survival. James felt his chest tighten at the pain in her voice. That sounds like a difficult childhood. It was, Rachel said simply, but it taught me things. How to spot a fake smile, how to hear what people are not saying, how to trust my instincts even when everything looks perfect on the surface. And your instincts told you Vanessa was lying, James said. Rachel nodded. I saw her with that man before you arrived. They were not romantic, not friends. It was business and not the good kind. When I heard them talking about using you, about stealing information, I just could not let it happen. I have watched too many good people get destroyed by users and manipulators. James reached across the table, his hand covering hers gently. You took a risk for a complete stranger. That takes courage. Rachel looked up at him, surprised by the touch. Or stupidity. I could have lost my job if she had complained about me. But you did it anyway, James said. That says everything about who you are. They talked for over an hour, the conversation flowing naturally from one topic to another. Rachel told him about her younger brother, Tommy, who was 15 and struggling in school. She worked 2 jobs to help her mother pay the bills and keep Tommy out of trouble. She dreamed of finishing her college degree in social work, of helping kids like her brother who needed guidance and support. James found himself sharing things he rarely told anyone. His fear of trusting people after a business partner had betrayed him years ago. The loneliness of success, of never knowing if people wanted him or his money. His own dreams of designing buildings that would make a real difference in people's lives, not just impressive structures for wealthy clients. You know what is funny? Rachel said, stirring her 3rd cup of coffee. Vanessa was probably chosen because she's exactly the type of woman-man like you're supposed to want. Beautiful, sophisticated, polished, and completely fake, James added. While you, sitting here in your jeans and sweater, telling me the truth about your life, are more beautiful than she could ever pretend to be. Rachel blushed, looking down at the table. You do not have to say things like that. I'm not saying it because I have to, James replied gently. I'm saying it because it is true. Real beauty is not about perfect hair or designer dresses. It is about honesty, courage, and kindness. You show me all 3 tonight. Rachel met his eyes, and for a moment, something passed between them. A recognition, a possibility, the beginning of something genuine in a world full of pretense. I should probably get home, Rachel said reluctantly, glancing at her phone. Tommy will be worried if I am too late. Can I walk you to your car? James offered. I take the bus, Rachel said. My car broke down last month, and I have not had the money to fix it yet. Then let me drive you home, James insisted. Please. It is late, and I would feel better knowing you got home safely. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. Okay, thank you. They walked out into the cool night air, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement from an earlier rain. James led her to his car, a modest sedan that surprised her. I expected something fancier, Rachel admitted as she got in. James laughed. I saved the fancy car for impressing clients. This is the real me. As he drove through the quiet streets, following Rachel's directions to her neighborhood, James felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone looking for love, but the quiet confidence that he had found something real, something worth pursuing slowly and carefully. When they reached Rachel's apartment building, a modest structure in a working-class neighborhood, James walked her to the door. Thank you for tonight, Rachel said. For the coffee, for listening, for being kind. Thank you for saving me, James replied, in more ways than one. He pulled out his phone. Can I have your number? I would like to see you again. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people getting to know each other honestly. Rachel smiled, a real smile that lit up her tired eyes. I would like that. As James drove home that night, he thought about how differently the evening had ended than how it had begun. He had walked into that restaurant hoping for perfection and had almost fallen for a beautiful lie. Instead, he had found something far more valuable. The truth, delivered by a brave young woman who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Thank you for seeing me. Not the waitress, not the struggling student. Just me. James smiled and typed back. That is exactly who I want to see. Good night, Rachel. Outside his window, the city lights sparkled like promises waiting to be kept. For the first time in a long time, James Carter believed in the possibility of something real. And it had started with a simple note, a brave act, and a woman who valued truth more than she feared consequences. The story did not end there, of course. It was just beginning. But that beginning was built on the strongest foundation possible: honesty, courage, and two people willing to take a chance on something genuine in a world that often settled for beautiful lies.